I'm Kate,
I'm Elle.
and we are down to Fae. We're continuing our Throne of Glass deep dive this week with Heir of Fire chapters 9 through 16. But first, we have a book rec that we technically recommended very early on, but we didn't talk about it beyond just saying that we liked it. So it was more of a recommendation. This is more of like a review or recap. We also reference it constantly.
Constantly.
So we are going to finally do the Fever series justice, but if you don't want to listen to our book recs, rude, but okay, you can skip ahead. I've started adding chapters in show notes, so you can just skip ahead to the deep dive if you want to.
But we recommend you listen. Also, I looked this up and you guessed it. I've definitely been pronouncing the author's name wrong all these years. I am so sorry, Karen.
We're sorry, Karen.
It's my fault.
No, it's actually she's sorry, Karen.
It's me. It's just me. The author is Karen Marie Moning, and I've been pronouncing her last name like Moaning.
And you said it with such confidence. And last time I even said, "Are you sure?" Because there's no, and you were like, "It's moaning."
This happens to us a lot.
You said it's moaning, you stupid bitch, and I was like, "God, Elle, calm down."
Just like that. Honestly, it didn't even occur to me that I could be saying it wrong. So I'm very sorry, Karen. There's some things I'm like, that's a weird word. I'm not sure. This one, I was like, I'm sure.
My brain just skips over words I don't know, and just what I can't control what comes out of my mouth. So just know that going into this. We have read this series, well, both series,
all
this
the series we talk about,
and ACOTAR and everything several times. But we don't listen to a lot of books. So yeah,
I think that's part of the problem
wrong.
Is that our mind associated how to say certain terms. And
you were like moaning.
I read all these before Audible was really a thing. So going back, it's hard to retrain my brain. So
it's
I'm
like
sorry,
me having a tattoo before there was Pinterest. It's fucking terrible. I didn't know. You don't know what you live and you learn.
You don't know what you didn't know. I love this series though. It's another one of those like OG series. Like I've read it so many times.
This and Black Dagger Brotherhood were like building blocks.
Yeah,
I don't know if I should say they're building blocks in my psyche. I don't know what that would say about me, but
the best part is that books are still coming out.
Yes.
So it's not even really a finished series and it continues to evolve, which is so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
I actually found this series because I had read a few other books that Karen wrote. They're characters that are in the same world and will also eventually show up in this story. That series I also highly recommend because the books are about magical time traveling Highlanders that are druids, and they are so sexy.
Sexy magical time traveling Highlander druids. The Fever series is set in present day. It was written in 2006, so like it's somewhat present day, and it's actually pretty nostalgic when you read it now, like some of the technology and references. She listens to a lot of Luke Bryan, early Luke Bryan.
She references a lot of music though. And I'm like, yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, and I would classify it as an urban fantasy romance or maybe a paranormal fantasy romance, kind of like Crescent City and another series that we talk about a lot, the Crossbreed series by Danica Dark. The first book in this series, Dark Fever, introduces you, it's the world as you know it. However, supernatural creatures like Fae exist and humans do not know about them.
The story begins with our FMC Michaela Lane, aka Mac, relaxing by the pool at her parents' house in Georgia. Mac is happy and carefree, spending her summer working at a local bar and taking classes at the community college, while her older sister is currently studying abroad in Dublin. This changes very quickly when the family gets a call that her sister Alina has been murdered, and it really kind of kicks off the story.
Right, and she also before that had gotten a voicemail from her sister that's very cryptic. So there are a few reasons for her to be suspicious and want to go over there.
But also, the police don't seem to be making any progress or making much effort to investigate the murder.
Police not caring about dead women? Crazy.
So Mac gets fed up and decides to go to Dublin herself to investigate.
Cut to us walking around Ireland the first time we went, and we were pointing out all the places that this character that doesn't even really exist, not even like well-known movies, but she would go to Temple Bar.
Oh, yeah.
There were several places. I'm not saying we went to Ireland because we read this series, but it definitely fueled like we really wanted to go after we read it.
I also felt, here's another excuse of me not knowing how to read a word. She references crack all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I always thought the word was crack. It's spelled like C-R-A-I-C.
They had to explain it to us there.
Until we were in Dublin and they were like, it's crack.
Get your crack on. No, I can't remember how to use it.
She loves the crack. So big news. It's very exciting for Mac. She's actually a she-seer. She
Mhm.
learns a lot about herself while she's there.
Yeah, she's not like other girls. Surprise!
I know, and I'm pretty confident I'm saying this word correctly. It's another Celtic word, but she's seer, meaning she can see through fake glamour. She has a few harrowing experiences and meets a fellow she seer who tells her all about it. She also learns that she can sense magical objects.
Speaking of, Sarah, our good friend Sarah J. Mass, is a fan of this series, and you can see the inspiration, like characters being able to sense magical objects, like Nesta, and investigating the murder of someone close to you who was keeping secrets, like Bryce and Danica. And I mean, those are like common tropes, but there are a lot more similarities, which I think if you've read all of Sarah's books and then you read this, you'll see it.
Well, we also hear about the Tua de Danann.
Which is, Dannon, Rune Dannon, Crown Prince of the Valbar and Fae.
It's spelled very similar with
Mhm.
Donnan and Dannon. Because Mac can sense these objects, some power players in Dublin start coming to her for help. This brings her two beautiful men competing for her help and
Oh
attention.
no. There's Jericho Barons, a mysterious and definitely not human bookstore owner who is still, after all the books I've read, still in my like top 5,
Oh
maybe
my
even top
god,
3
he's so
book
sexy.
boyfriends.
Not just morally gray, but he is like the dark bad boy that you're like, "Oh my
Yes.
god."
And Vlaine, a prince of the Sealy court who can make you addicted to sex with him.
I mean, he's also very sexy. Like one kiss for him and she orgasms like,
Yes.
"Okay."
Oh my god, wait, was that on a beach? I have some
That's
core
one of many times when he puts her name he literally is putting his name in her mouth.
I
And they're
have
like, take my name out of your mouth. Here
memories.
goes. It's like a visual of what
Oh my
happened.
god, y'all! Everyone has to read this book.
It's just there's so many little sexy
Blow up your
moments
TBR. Read this next.
you won't forget. The Fae are slowly slipping into the world and something big is happening.
They're slipping into a lot.
There's a lot of slipping. Cataclysmic events happen that not only explain what happened to Alina, Mac's sister, but change the world forever. Mac will be key in helping to fight what's coming and prevent devastation.
I love the world building in this series. Like, I loved the magic and everything. Mac gets on my fucking nerves sometimes. She's very girly and she's whiny about things like cutting or having to cut her hair when people are dying, Kim. And she gets really good at fighting and shit, probably a little too easily, which is one of my pet peeves. Just when there's like one training montage and all
There's
of a
something
sudden
like
they're
really
great.
good.
And she's kind of like Bryce. Mac comes across like a party girl and very vapid in the beginning. And I have to remind myself that, you know, I see a lot of myself in Mac. Just she's from Georgia. She's like a vapid little slut. I was too. But also, like Bryce, she has to grow up very quickly after losing someone close to her and team up with a man to solve a mystery. I would say that if Mac gets on your nerves in the beginning, to keep reading because there's a lot of character growth and the world is you see more and more of the world with every book and you're introduced to more and more characters. But I love the folklore and the backdrop of Ireland and the morally gray men, plural. But again, Faye can make you addicted to sex with them. That's how good it is.
But also that Fae sex is so good, it'll literally kill
But if
you.
you're addicted, sometimes it has to be fucked out of you by somebody else. Because
Wow.
that happens. I won't say who, like that's a huge spoiler. I wonder who has sex in this
That
series.
was such a sexy start to that book, though. Oh,
Oh my god. He's
god.
like, I'm gonna have to fuck it out of you.
I hate that for us. Kate has
What a way to go.
I know. Kate has started putting the book recs in show notes. So if you want to write it down or save it on Goodreads or Fable, the first book is Dark Fever in the Fever series by Karen Marie Monning.
And I do want to get Fable for us. I know a lot of people have said that it's more user friendly. We still
Oh.
have Goodreads, and I'm not as good at keeping Goodreads up to date, but I am adding it to show notes. And if you would like to send us a book rec or a meme or anything, we love messages. Elle has her own little folder that she started where she screenshots everything and saves it. DM us at DTFA Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, and I put our P.O. box in our bio.
Finally.
Okay,
so let's jump back into Heir of Fire for chapters 9 through 16. Last week we ended with Selena.
And we're sticking with Selena for now because that's how she refers to herself. Selena was taken to Mistward by Rowan to meet with the Queen of the Fae and certified baddie Maeve. She needs to get answers about the word keys so she can return to Alderlin and go tit to dick with the king. But Maeve won't allow Selena to enter Dornell until Rowan, who is basically that emoji with straight lines for the eyes and the mouth, until he deems her quote unquote worthy. Is that not the perfect emoji?
I know. I was like,
Rowan?
are you saying he's grumpy?
Is he grumpy?
That is exactly how
It's
he is.
kind of grumpy sunshine, but it's more grumpy depressed.
It's yeah, poor Rowan, sort of.
Poor Rowan.
Just just imagine
Hurt
how
people hurt people.
that is exactly how they are right now. Because the 2 of them together, they're just kinda, like, snapping at each other.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, back in Rifthold, Kaol is dreading moving to his parents' basement in Aniel. Dorian is struggling to keep from constantly blowing his magical load, and a new bombshell has entered the villa. General Adian Ashriver, leader of the Bane, Selena's cousin, and capital W whore of Otterlin.
Put some respect on that whore. And also the millennial urge to end every recap we do with, and that's what you missed on Glee.
In chapter 9, we're back with Manon, the Iron Tooth bitch disguised as a Kraken witch we briefly met in the last episode.
Manon and her coven are on guard duty while Manon's, I hate saying that. It is Manon though. I refuse to say Manon. Manon's grandmother, the High Witch of the Blackbeak clan, speaks to none other than that thick fuck, Duke Parrington. You probably thought we were seeing the last of him.
Mm-mm.
We haven't seen him since Throne of Glass.
While the high bitch talks to the thick fuck, Manon is dreaming about the days of flying before magic disappeared 10 years ago, when she and her coven, the 13, would do fun things like terrorize men on ground and break from the skies.
Those were the good old days.
Wait, break from the skies. They were terrorizing men from the ground and the skies, really. We don't meet all of the 13 yet, but we do hear about Astrid, her second, and Sorrel, her third.
When magic disappeared, thanks to the boss of the guy that you guys are currently talking to, their brooms became just regular ass brooms. Like the patriarchy literally took away flying and then was like, well, since you already have a broom in your hand.
I can literally see a gif of the face like, well,
you already have a broom.
there are 2 prison G-Wagons with the Duke and his guards, one with a male odor, perhaps a hint of Axe body spray, and one female, but both smell wrong.
It's pretty obvious that this is Roland and Caltaine.
Roland Havillard is Dorian's problematic
But
cousin.
sexy. Problematic but sexy cousin.
He is blonde. We met in Crown of Midnight. He had a little thing with someone Kaol loved, so they had beef before the events of Throne of Glass.
Who is Kaol not beefing with currently?
So it's kind of his personality. But he pops up again, this time on the King's Council wearing a matching BFF black ring with the King and Parrington.
And Caltaine was a major player in Throne of Glass, but it turns out she was actually mostly just being played herself by Parrington. He convinced Caltaine to drug Selena in the final duel, then she took the fall and was taken to the dungeons. That thick fuck was somehow messing with her. We don't know the specifics yet, but he was messing with Caltaine and with Kane, and he was causing her headaches, which she assumed was because she was a crack whore at the time, which I guess she's going through withdrawals now, but
it's actually because the King and Parrington were fucking with her.
also suffering from headaches, Roland, and he doesn't even smoke meth that we know of. When Selena lands herself in the dungeons, Caltaine says some odd shit, like something is coming and that she's to greet it. Selena gives her her cloak, thus the serial's origin story begins.
Caltaine is subsequently taken to Timu Mordor, aka Morath, to quote-unquote marry Parrington.
All of that to be said, it's pretty obvious that Roland and Caltaine, who we know have magic in their family histories, are in these prison wagons and smell quote-unquote off to Manon.
Yeah, we do hear a lot about things smelling off in this book. Specifically, Manon says the prisoners and the Duke smell wrong. Alien.
The guards are trying not to piss themselves at the sight of Manon, not because she's an uggo. She's, of course, gorgeous with moon white hair, alabaster skin, and burnt gold eyes.
Too bad the witch's aging process, like their flying, went to shit when magic disappeared 10 years ago. Manon is well over 100 years old, and until 10 years ago, she looked no older than 16.
Which, red flag if any guy was into that.
Yeah, I mean, how many people... Ugh. But it gives me more questions about what their actual aging process is when they have magic. Now she looks to be in her mid-20s.
Disgusting.
So old. Witches aging like mortals especially hit the high bitch of the Blackbeak clan. Her face now with the beginnings of wrinkles.
Also disgusting.
And gray hairs.
You know that game.
Thanks so much for pointing that out. Even though she's probably starting getting AARP in the mail unsolicited.
It's always unsolicited.
Manon's grandmother is beautiful. But unlike Manon, her grandmother has gold-flecked black eyes like the rest of the Blackbeak clan's purest bloodline.
And it's actually a pretty big fucking deal, the gold eyes.
So, I mean, it's a big deal to have the black eyes that are flecked with gold, and Manon's are like full burnt gold, which is a big statement. Manon doesn't totally understand why, but when her grandmother saw Manon's wholly dark gold eyes, The matron carried her away from her daughter's still cooling corpse and proclaimed her heir.
And personality wise, if her just walking away from her daughter's corpse doesn't tell you enough, the matron of the Blackbeak, why is that so hard to
I
say?
don't
The
know. I stumbled over it.
Blackbeak clan is like Airbin with tits, basically. Really into punishment, especially humiliation and corporal punishment. Like Manon fully expects to be flogged for not finding any Kraken witches in the months that she and the 13 were searching. And there are a couple times Manon is guilty of the same thing, like with the same type of punishment. And I'm like, what is this
Well, it's
accomplishing?
more grooming as the book goes on. Like Manon will talk about how she has no soul. They're
Hmm.
brutal. That's how they're trained and
Right.
that's just how they are.
And the high bitch finishes her meeting with the Duke and tells Manon the collective they are traveling north. Send 3 of your 13 south, west, and east to seek out every last Blackbeak witch and tell them to assemble between the White Fang and Rune 2N mountains at the Farian Gap.
If you're thinking the fairy and gap sounds familiar, this is from Crown of Midnight when Nehemia, well, one of the times Nehemia was pushing Selena.
Just one of them.
There are far darker things gathering on the horizon. My dreams have been filled with shadows and wings, the booming of wings soaring between mountain passes, and every scout and spy we send into the White Fang Mountains, into the Farian Gap, does not come back. Do you know what the people say in the valleys below? They say they can hear wings too, riding the winds through the gap.
And now the witches who haven't been able to fly for 10 years are gathering in the Farian Gap, so suspicious, but also Nehemia dreaming about that. Did she have a little bit of sight, or is that just because she had heard rumors and it was in her psyche, so she was having nightmares?
I don't know because Nehemia was also able to use word marks,
Hmm.
which I think you have to have magic in your blood. So more questions about Nehemia.
Yeah, do we actually find out if she had magic in her blood, that her family was able to use word marks?
I don't know if that's really discussed going forward because there's so
Hmm.
many bigger issues that
I don't actually
pop up, but
care,
but
but
it is an interesting tidbit. It
uh-huh.
makes you wonder. We do get a little bit of witch politics here. Every witch belongs to a coven, and every witch is a sentinel or soldier.
I'd be so fucked. I'd be like, "Are there any other jobs? Like, I can actually sweep with the broom."
What else do you need from me? There are 3 Iron Teeth clans, the Blackbeaks, the Blue Bloods, and the Yellow Legs, and each are led by their own matron.
Which I think we should do a little witch lore refresh
Yes,
from the
please.
first 2 books. The Witch Kingdom, aka the Western Waste, it was basically Barbie land for witches until 500 years ago when the Iron Teeth clans banded together to overthrow the Krakens. So the last Kraken witch was like, "Bet, you can have the land, but I've cursed it." Which is kind of funny, kind of baller. You kind of deserved it.
I just like the way I cursed it.
I cursed it.
It was a little more dramatic than that.
Yeah, she was. It was
Oops, I
her
cursed
dying. It was her dying breath, so she probably didn't say it like
a little bit
that.
more aggressive, but like I cursed it. Which, and I don't think this has been explicitly said yet. That's why they're hunting down Krakens.
Mhm.
They think that they can Una reverse the curse. All of the Iron Teeth. I keep wanting to say the Blackbeaks, but all the Iron Teeth witches think that they hunt down the Krakens, they can Una reverse the curse. But we'll learn a lot more witch lore and a lot more about the curse later.
And that's what you missed on Glee.
If you could just help yourself just a little bit.
I'm sorry. I won't say it any more this episode.
Next episode, it's on. The high bitch tells Manon that the Duke said Baba Yellowlegs was killed in Rifthold, and no one knows by whom or why.
Unless you've read Crown of Midnight. Baba was threatening to sell Dorian's secrets, so after that carny bitch told Selena about the word keys, Selena killed her using knowledge that she got from Ansel, an assassin's blade.
But the Duke wasn't just there to gossip about Baba.
He does love gossiping, though.
I mean, he's so in the middle of it. The king of Otterland has invited the witches to assemble in the Farian Gap for prezzies.
You got his prezzies?
Manon's head immediately goes to trap. Maybe the king is working with the Krakens. I mean, it does make sense. Like, why, after all these hundreds of years, are we assembling everybody in one place?
Well, no one, and the witches are not, they don't ask questions.
They don't. It's very militaristic.
Yes.
They follow orders, which I guess works in some settings.
Mm-hmm.
So Manon's worried, like, is this something with the Krakens or are the Blue Bloods working with the king? Those witches would love to be high witches.
But also, I'd be like, what Krakens, Manon?
Yeah.
Is he working with the Krakens?
You can't
Where?
find them. Where
Are the
they?
Krakens in the room with us right now? And it's not just the Blackbeaks getting the offer, it is all of the Iron Teeth clans. The king needs riders for his wyverns. I'm still bitter about getting that wrong
In
in
your
Throne of
defense,
Glass trivia.
randomly having dragons on the library when the
Makes no
wyvern is the
sense.
sigil makes no sense.
But the king needs riders for his wyverns. He wants the witches to be his aerial cavalry. I don't know why it makes me laugh picturing them like coming into war on their brooms, but whatever.
I don't. Yeah, it does seem a little bit more menacing
It's a little cartoonish.
on a wyvern versus just like on a broom.
And when they're done, they get to keep the wyverns. So that's nice.
AKA, it is on site with the mortals in Western Wastes.
But also, okay, still, what's the plan? You haven't defeated the curse, so you get the land back, and then what?
Just ignore the fact that the curse is the actual issue. You could walk into the waste anytime. You cannot survive there.
Well, and also, speaking of the waste, we just happen to know one of those redheaded mortals living there. So good luck.
Yeah, last time we saw her, she was on her way back. So, question mark? Even though Manon can feel threads of fate twisting and tightening around them, she's like, you know what? Fuck yeah.
And the king is actually very smart in recruiting the witches for this because they're so desperate to be back flying and who else is going to be good at flying like the witches? Like it's mutually beneficial.
Oh my God, but the witches are also terrifying. Like, you don't need to put them on more teeth. Like, wyverns already have like the poison barb in their tails and talons and teeth. And then you got these terrifying witches. The king is smart in this move.
Well, and there's also a lot of, not parallels, I don't know what the word I'm trying to think of, with Fourth Wing. Like a lot of the terminology, I'm not saying that Sarah is the first one to talk about riding dragons or wyverns and a lot of that, but it is like wing leader, and a lot of things come up in this series that I had forgotten.
Yeah. Well,
there might have been a little inspo.
I was going to say, maybe those are common terms, not wing leader, but like, I don't know any military terms. I know nothing about the military. Wonder if
I've dated multiple guys in the military, so I would say I'm an expert.
Oh, okay. Is any of that used in? Oh my God! I just drew a blank on the branch of the military.
Army, Air Force.
I don't know. I just drew a blank on the word Air Force. Everybody just forget that happened. But I do wonder if like that's a term with the Air Force because they're in the air. Like,
all the times that I fucked guys from the Air Force, it never came up.
Have you fucked guys from the Air Force? I thought it was just the Marines.
No, he was in the Army, but he was he jumped out of planes.
Oh, I did do things with a Navy SEAL one time, but we can talk about that later.
A SEAL?
He did.
No, I actually do know about that. It was at that fort. Fort. I won't say the name, but I know
saying
exactly.
That fort, that sounds like we were out like playing games in the woods.
No, capital F fort.
Well, we were in the fort. Okay.
Okay.
We're living and learning.
Back in Rifthold, Kale is having a day. He's had to do his job. No one's slobbing his knob in the closet anymore.
Damn it.
He's avoiding his magical butt buddy, and now 2 of his guards are missing from their posts. So that is his 13th reason.
Because all of the cool kids are at Adian's party, where he's rented out an entire tavern.
Which is a baller move. It's like when you were a kid and it's Chuck E. Cheese and you went in and they're like, we have the whole place. I'd be like, what?
Let loose, let live. But also, like, he told these guys they could leave their posts. Like, that's a baller move. Like, they're just going to disobey orders.
Kale won't mind. Like, have you met Kale?
Kale busts into
all
this
he does
party,
is mind.
Big mad, and he sends those guards right back to work.
Because Fun hates to see Kale coming.
Kale wants to yell at the host, but he can't find the general. Everyone seems to have just seen him, but Kale can't actually find him anywhere.
I'd be busting into all the like bedrooms. Oops. Just trying to catch a glimpse of our bi-queen Adian in action.
Oh God, I wish that was a little novella too. Kale finally realizes that Adian isn't at his own party.
He also hears the Bane, Adian's legion, will be arriving in Rifthold soon, so it is about to be Panama City on spring break.
Yes.
Bad news for Kale because 1, he hates Fun, and 2, with his guards fucking off, he's worried the king might look too closely at his captain. This I highlighted because I don't totally understand. He says that the king might ask where Kale disappears to sometimes. Where is he?
The fact that Kale thinks he's so important. The king
is like...
We learned in the last 2 books, the king literally tells you nothing about his plans. No. The king literally fucking left, and his entire traveling party was...
Duke. You're not...
Well, they were all killed, and the king did not care.
He's
did
not in
consult
the inner circle
with you. Kale, he pays attention to literally nothing you do. You are not important to him.
But where is Kale disappearing to?
I know, but, like,
I don't even know what he's talking about here.
I think when he's, like, going down to, like, research things probably at Elena's tomb.
He's reading a book and he thinks the king gives a shit about that?
I don't know. I don't know, but the fact that Kale thinks the king gives a shit about him at all, I'm like, "He's not paying attention to you, Kale." He's still like, bless his heart.
Delusional.
Yeah. So, new plan, find some dirt on Adian and blackmail him into keeping his men under control.
Not a great plan. Like, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but plot wise, we just need some forced proximity for Kale and Adian.
Back at Mistward, Selena is feeling the effects of getting your shit rocked then sleeping in a freezing room. Rowan doesn't apologize for punching her in the face, but he does leave her a salve.
The bar is in hell. He punched her, but he left her some Neosporin. He's a good guy. And he also left it with a note that's like, you deserved it. Watch your back, bitch. But at least he brought her some water, some soap, and clothes, including white granny panties. So I would sneeze and ruin those within the month. How many granny panties do we have, Rowan?
One pair, just one? But also, like, why do you know my size?
I don't think he does. I think if it were Arabin, they would be sized correctly. They would be matching her
That's
dresses.
probably why they're granny panties. He's like, they'll fit somebody.
They'll fit.
We're not quite back to the Selena that arrived at the Glass Castle after a year in Endovir, but her diet of wine and flatbread has caused her to lose weight.
What diet of pizza and wine is making lose weight? What is she on?
She's not even getting the wine or the pizza though. She's just getting some bread and like no water.
That's true.
She's got to be so dehydrated. But it's caused her to lose weight. Her hair is in desperate need of a deep conditioning as well.
At least she still has her every kiss begins with Kale ring. Speaking of Kale, she wonders what he would think of like gestures broadly, all of this shit. She obviously misses him and she's accepted that it's not Kale's fault that Nehemia died, but she can't get over the betrayal of Kale choosing to keep the threat on Nehemia's life secret, but also the bigger she chose the king again over her after everything they had been through. She chose a war criminal over her.
I mean, the fact that he just still is following orders somewhat blindly is shocking. Like, it's still kind of shocking. Like,
he's having a real crisis of identity, I guess.
Yeah.
Identity crisis. I don't know why I said it like that.
and he's at least having a crisis. It just wasn't fast enough to tell her about Nehemia. So, time to push all those emotions behind that door in her mind and get to work in the kitchen where she's introduced to an old man and a young man. Rowan at least doesn't use her name, and she chooses to introduce herself as Alentia, the name given to her by Nehemia, as if she doesn't have enough names.
Aelin, Selena, Lillian, Elienta, Ash River, Galanthinius.
Wait, don't forget, was it Diana that Arabin called her as his
Diana?
niece?
Oh, yeah. Gosh,
She's got more in there.
That's very Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
That's like Danny having all those names. But Imris is the older man and Luca is the younger man, and they are both, as Maeve and Sabine would call them, half-breeds. It's pretty obvious from Selena's accent, busted lip, and general look of depression where she's from. So these guys, well, especially Imris, picks up pretty quickly that she's not in a good place mentally and emotionally, even if Rowan seems to think that she's a spoiled and selfish princess.
Well, and throughout the book, we'll learn more about Rowan and his mindset. Most of us can see her rotting in the first chapters and know that she is going through it and also not going through it at all. And Rowan was like, she's on a party vacation.
Yeah.
He saw that whole situation very differently than the rest of us.
She was on a grippy socks vacation, not on a fun vacation.
Yeah, nothing about like not showering, getting in bar fights, not really eating and taking care of yourself seems like a fun vacation.
Well, my favorite part of that is she would gamble and lose her ring, but then beat the shit out of the person and get it back. I'd be like, what the fuck?
That's not how this works, but okay. On top of the giant hearth made from ancient stone are 9 iron figurines of gods and goddesses, and Selena quickly looks away from the 2 females in the center, one with a star and armed with a bow and quiver, and the other with a bronze disc between her hands.
Deanna cameo and a little foreshadowing. I don't think we've learned about the other yet, but we will soon.
Everyone rushes down for breakfast, and Selena is introduced to a few people, but most don't give a shit about her, which is a nice change after being a princess, then an infamous assassin, then the king's champion.
But she also loves being famous, so...
I know, she's just not, it's not the right time.
And we know Rowan isn't telling people who she is because that would involve him speaking to people, because it's not just her that he's rude to or doesn't talk to. Like, she sees him interacting with literally nobody. And we were also wrong about the skills on her resume, which is, like we said, a piece of paper that says murder in Comic Sans. Some of those skills actually translated because it turns out that she can make perfect little slices. She's
She
good
is
at cutting,
great at cutting.
which is horrifying when you think about it. It's because she would torture people. But yes, chef.
You use what you can do. It's Selena, so of course she's in her head wondering what they'd think if they knew all the terrible shit that she's done.
No one's thinking about you.
But I mean, like, even if they knew terrible shit, like, I'm sure some of them have done some stuff too, but it's just, she's all in her own head about it.
Mhm.
But they're mostly just concerned about the Beltane festival being rained out.
And Beltane is a real Gaelic May Day festival marking the beginning of summer. It's obvious the half-breeds, or as they like to be called, the demi-fae, like Imris and Luca, they don't have perfect lives. They aren't in Dornell to begin with, but it's such a stark difference to how Selena was forced to live, how everyone in Otterland lives. Like we were talking about last week, it would be hard not to resent that. Like these people are worrying about a festival being rained out, but no one came to Terrason's aid. Y'all are worried about this, but people in Otterland, they can't even have festivals that hint at magic.
I mean, they literally live in Mistward because they may not have enough magic, but if they lived around Otterland, they would have been slaughtered immediately.
Exactly.
It's a different.
And that's not their fault, but
No.
it would be hard not to look around at them complaining about dumb shit like that and just, you guys don't know suffering.
But it also kind of rubs in her face all the things that she accepted living in Otterland or just got used to. And I guess it's not that she didn't have to, but it was the only way to move forward. And then it's being reminded like, oh, I forgot I even like accepted that treatment because I just got so used to it and I didn't have to. That's not how people here live.
And those are festivals that they would have been celebrating too if they were allowed to, but it's kind of like Christianity taking it when it would be introduced to countries. A lot of the festivals and the holidays would be changed to fit the religion.
Yeah.
And
or taken away altogether.
Right. And so that's kind of what the king has done.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that I don't think Selena celebrated Beltane since she was a child.
Mm-hmm.
Luca, by the way, has years to go until he learns whether or not he qualifies to enter Dornell. And Imris has been at the fortress since he was 15. And Imris is old. That's terrifying.
It's concerning.
He was there since he was 15. And then he found out that he wasn't, quote, worthy enough 10 years after that.
And that scares the shit out of Selena, who is on a bit of a timeline to,
deadline here.
Save the world. At least Imris has his mate, Malachi, and he'd rather have his kitchen in Mistward than be looked down on in Dornell anyway, so he is making it work. I like that character.
I do too. Selena corrects them that she isn't demi-fae.
Demi?
Is it demi-fae?
I think so.
I don't know why I can't say it right. Selena corrects them that she isn't demi-fae, despite her rounded ears, but doesn't answer whether or not she can shift.
Because her animal form is her human form, hence the rounded ears.
Which is also interesting because really...
it was bestiality with Kaol. I agree.
No, I was just going to say her fae heritage is a further generation back, and the amount of power and the fact that she can shift is impressive considering a lot of these fae. One of their parents was fae, or demi-fae. One of their parents was fae.
Are you having a stroke?
I can't get it out. One of their parents was fae, and they still didn't inherit much power.
Yeah.
Luca makes a comment that if they could shift, maybe they'd have been collected by Maeve like the other gifted fae. Some of the people at the Fortress have magic, but it's boring shit like encouraging plants to grow.
They're like, you can do it, plants?
No one there has rare abilities like shape-shifting into any form, controlling fire, or sight.
There was a pretty female with raw magic who could do anything she wanted, summon any element, who showed up at the fortress 2 years ago and was there a week before Maeve called her to Dornell, and she was never heard from again.
It's daunting.
Hard not to spiral into conspiracies when it comes to an unnamed SJM character, but I assume that this woman was just killed by Maeve for having certain powers, right? Like, I would love for this to be a character from another series, but I think it's just an early red flag and foreshadowing with Maeve. I mean, I know that there's another option for who that character could be.
Oh, I just took it as like she was so powerful that Maeve snatched her up and forced her into a blood oath quickly.
See, I was like, is that Feyre? I try to connect everything.
Because I immediately was like making connections between the way her magic could become anything to Dorian. I'm like, what is Dorian's magic?
Yeah, is it baby girl Dorian when he's a woman?
So yeah, you took it as like Maeve killed her. And I was like, oh man, she wanted that power to use.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it comes up again. When Luca rolls his eyes about the farmer's only magic they have at the fortress, Imrys chastises him, saying, those powers were gifted by the gods to help them survive, and they've been passed down through the generations, so of course they're watered down and aligned with the elements. Selena thinks about how some stories say the gods gifted the powers through the gift of fucking, but shouldn't say anything.
I prefer that story.
Yes.
When she asks about Rowan, Imrys tells her he's one of the few Fae they see around Mistward. He's an introvert, so probably a Scorpio, an asshole, and occasionally he'll arrive with others like him. The 6 of them serving Maeve as I don't know if I were a queen, I would also have a sexy little cabal of fighters. But they're like her war leaders or her spies. It's her sexy little inner circle. And there's a sexy little boys club in the Fever series. I don't know if we mentioned that.
Yeah, there's
We
9
were
of those.
talking about there are 9 of them, and we do eventually get at least one of them get their own kind of storyline.
2 of
What's
them.
his name? 2 of them. Wait, I don't know. The one that I'm thinking of. That's
The one
with,
that I'm thinking of Lore, when he pretends to be Priya, and he's
No.
like, yeah, bring me all the ladies.
no, I'm thinking of the other one.
I
The
know.
one that runs the
I
club.
feel like his name is also Rowan. It starts with an R.
I think it's Rowan too.
I don't
It
know
does
if it's
start with
Rowan.
R.
It's something with an R.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So yes, sexy little boys club. I shouldn't say sexy little boys.
they're not little. They're not boys.
If
But
you're into that sort of thing, and we are.
you should be. Imrys is old as shit, and when he got to Mistward, he was only 15. The oldest people at the fortress had known Rowan since they were young. So that's wild.
Yeah, and Luca's better at spilling tea though, because Imrys is very just like what you'd find on Wikipedia.
Imrys is trying to be like politically correct, I guess, in case anything's overheard. He's being very polite.
Well, Luca says that Rowan is the meanest of Maeve's little circle jerk of warriors, and he can't read the old language. No one can, unless you go into Doranel, you're not going to be taught the old Fae language. But he's heard that Rowan's tattoos are a list of people that he's killed. The whole keeping groups of people being able to read is like a classic way to control groups of people, not just in these books, but in history. And it's kind of like the king getting rid of all of the books on magic, like keeping the population ignorant is keeping them compliant.
I mean, it's keeping them compliant, but also she's just like another way to like make them feel like shit. Like you're not worthy of even knowing my language. Like,
right.
God, Maeve. Okay, gossip sesh over. Time to spiral.
Time to spiral. Selena is realizing that with Arabin, then Endovir, and then the castle, she literally can't remember what it's like to be free. And now she's here, and her fate is yet again not in her hands. It's in the hands of an asshole with prison teardrop tattoos and a bad attitude. And that's what pisses me off later when characters they think she should have done more. And I'm like, when? When would she have done more? When was she ever in control of her fate?
Well, especially after reading Assassin's Blade and like knowing how in deep she was indebted to Arabin, especially as a child and moving on. It's just
she was the famous Otterland's assassin, but she didn't actually have any control of her life.
I mean, it's from an outside perspective. It's kind of how Rowan's treating her. If you just see her actions and take it as like fact without trying to look deeper, I guess you could talk some shit and be like, why haven't you tried to do more?
Yeah.
And I mean, Rowan kind of says some stuff like that to her too. There's so much more going on.
I didn't see you guys over there trying to help Terracin.
Yeah, I didn't see.
Pieces of shit.
Yeah, as this story goes along, we'll rehash some of these details too. So back at the ferry in Gap, the Blackbeak clan was the last to arrive, and as a result, they get stuck with the smallest and farthest rooms in the halls carved into the Omega. I wonder why they were the last to arrive. That's not really discussed.
I think it's because they had to go gather everybody.
Yeah, which is kind of shitty. Like we're doing the work
I know.
here.
It seems like they would have saved them. It's you don't watch Bravo, but on the Real Housewives, every time they go on a trip, it's like everyone rushes into wherever they're staying to get the good rooms. That's what I pictured here.
Yeah, that's literally what's happening because they're in the rooms that are like the farthest in the last of the Rune Mountains.
Rune with 2 ends.
Rune with 2 ends.
And just so you can visualize it, the Ferrian Gap is a mountain pass between the Rune Mountains where the witches are staying. They're specifically in the Omega, and the White Fang Mountains where the King's Men are staying and where Cain from Book 1 was from. It's one of the few passes between the East and the Western Waste.
They've been there for a day and they haven't seen any wyverns yet, but she's heard them, even though they're being kept across the pass in the Northern Fang.
So they're definitely loud if you can hear them. It's been a casual 500 years since all three Iron Teeth clans were assembled, since they fucked around and found out with that croc and witch who cursed them. I curse you. There had been over 20,000, but their numbers have been reduced to 3,000 at best.
That's wild.
But don't get it twisted. The three clans, Blackbeak, Yellowlegs, and Blue Bloods, they're all Iron Teeth, but they still fucking hate each other. So the inside of this mountain is basically Gen Pop of a state prison. It is dangerous.
It is everything is on site. Her second and cousin Astrid kicks some ass, which Manon appreciates, but she still punishes her with a blow to the ribs because they're still like
I hate
militaristic.
this. I know.
It's very much like you still follow orders, and if you act out, you get punished, but also wink, good job.
Mhm.
It's kind of
Right.
weird.
It's stupid.
Like, show our strength, but also at least act like you're following my orders.
Yeah.
Manon punches her in public with a blow to her ribs so she'll remember her actions with every breath, and she breaks
Jesus.
her nose to remind her that the punishment could have been a lot worse.
Okay, now I have a crooked nose forever.
Can we fix this?
But she says that Astrid is like smiling about it. I would
Mhm.
not be smiling about a fucked up nose for
But
the rest
that's
of my
how
life.
brutal these witches, all of them are. It's just brutal.
And I don't know, the witch rules and punishment don't make a ton of sense to me. But Manon doesn't see her cousin. She doesn't see the 13 or anyone, period, as friends, even though they've been together for a literal century. We've been together for a century, and I now have a crooked nose.
Yeah. Well, also, Astrid is her cousin. So it's not just like her close coven, it's family,
Yeah.
but they're not really friends. That's just a weird mindset.
It's like they're not friends, but they are. She just doesn't call
It's
it
almost, I
that.
think she thinks of them as deeper than friends. Like it's a different kind of connection.
Yeah.
Unlike Manon, the Yellowlegs heir a bull of a bitch.
If someone called me a bull of a person, that would be it for me.
I know that she's got to be pretty in some form because they all are. But I imagine her as this like just thick bowling ball of a person. Like just
I picture
just like
Matilda.
this crunchable crunch. Yeah, I'm saying it all wrong. Exactly though. That's exactly. I'm just like
When I picture a bull of a woman, that's what comes to mind.
this beefy, angry, like hateful
Yeah.
person named Iskra, and Iskra only gave her second a warning for the fight.
All of the coven leaders are under orders to keep their witches in line or risk the wrath of the three matrons, which now include the High Witch of the Yellowlegs clan. They got the memorial service for Baba out of the way as quickly as possible, and this new matron is taken over.
Which is interesting because Manon notes that they say they kind of like say everything they're supposed to say, but nobody really has any feeling behind it.
No.
I'm kind of like, this is
They're
supposed to
going
be
through the
an
motions.
ancient witch. It's supposed to be a big deal, and none
But
of
she
you
was
showed.
also a bitch.
I mean, but they all are. So they
Yeah.
didn't really show her a lot of respect, which is interesting. But moving on, they had to DIY the service, saying the sacred words to the three-faced goddess like Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis in that apology video.
We have plenty of three-faced goddess theories that we will get to when we learn a little bit more. I don't want to blow our theories load too early, but yes, we have three-faced goddess theories connecting to the other series.
Manon doesn't give a shit about Baba, but she is curious who killed her and why. But no one seems to know. Even Manon's two shadows have overheard nothing.
Not that they can ask the Blue Bloods, who arrive first and claim the uppermost rooms because they need the mountain breeze to complete their 5 to 9s before their 9 to 5s every day because they love their little rituals.
The Blue Bloods, according to Manon, are religious fanatics, but to their credit, it was their devotion and sight that rallied the witches 500 years ago, even if it had been the Blackbeak witches who won the battles.
What did the Yellowlegs do?
I mean, the yellow legs are kind of just like your weapons.
Cartoon witches?
Like
That's
they just
what
get
I picture.
angry. I just imagine them being like a wind-up toy. You wind them up and just send them out.
Oh, okay. Between the Omega, where the witches are staying, and the Northern Fang, where the king's men are staying, is a bridge made of black stone. Like the two prisoners, Caltaine and Roland, it smells wrong. In fact, this whole place doesn't smell natural, but no one else seems to notice. Only Manon, or if they do notice, they're not saying anything.
There's about 50 witches, the highest ranking coven leaders in each clan, and they gather at the giant hole in the side of the mountain along with three matrons.
The new Yellowlegs matron is basically Baba if you squint hard, but the Blue Bloods matron, Cressida?
Cressida.
Cressida is tall and willowy, more priestess than warrior, with deep blue robes and a band of barbed iron stars on her brow. I gotta blow like a tiny witch load, like a tiny witch theory load. First of all, yes, Cressida is Varian's sister from the Summer Court in Akatar. She's with Tarquin when Feyre, Rhys, and Amren visit. So my mind went in so many different directions when I first read that name in Akatar because Sarah is very purposeful in names, but also lack of names. But she admitted that she forgot she had already used that name.
Really?
But secondly, the blue blood's power of sight makes me think of Elaine, who I fully expect to be a witch. Her and or Meryl. There's like a lot of options. I just have this mental image of Elaine wearing the blue cloak at the Illyrian camp when they're talking about witches. And it also sounds similar to the priestesses in Akatar who wear those blue gray robes and they're a little crazy. There are no barbed iron stars, but they do wear those silver circlets set with the blue invoking stones. And that bitch Ianthe had that blue ink tattoo of the moon cycle. And just speaking of witches in Akatar, Cassian's big bad blue anise has iron claws and likes the blood of virgins.
Put a pin in that.
Is that how you say it, blue anise?
I don't know.
I don't know how else you'd say it. Blue anise? Blue anise.
Anise? I
Is
don't know. Anna sounds good.
She also gave Cassian blue anise, whatever, anise. Blue anise also gave Cassian a scar with those iron claws, which is something we know that iron teeth bitches love to do. I don't want to go too far off topic, so we will just know we will talk about a lot more potential witches in Prithian in the future. We are
Yes.
just getting started with the witches.
I'd really hate for us to go off
I
topic.
would hate for us to go off topic. I don't even know. I think I just blacked out. I don't know what I was just talking about.
So at least it was somewhat on topic being witches.
Thank you.
Back to the blue bloods and three-faced goddess. Legend says witches are gifted iron teeth and nails to keep them anchored to this world when magic threatened to pull them away. The iron crown is proof, basically a flex that magic in the blue blood line is so strong they need a little extra iron to keep them tethered.
And I'm sure that it looks pretty cool. It looks pretty metal, but magic has been gone for 10 years, so it's pretty unnecessary at this point.
Well, magic has been gone, but the blue bloods do some weird shit in the woods, and they have rituals where pain is a gateway to magic.
You know what's interesting? And two things that are interesting, and I'm going off topic again.
Okay.
The pain being a gateway to shit like sight thing, and then the iron grounding or blocking magic. Both made me think of Elaine. Elaine refuses to wear gloves, even those really nice ones that Lucy got her, almost like she wants her hands to be torn up. And I mean, that's probably more a metaphor for Elaine not wanting everyone to protect and baby her, especially from something that she enjoys. And we know that there's a lot of iron propaganda in Akatar, but is Elaine still wearing that engagement ring? Like, is that iron ring helping her stay tethered?
You know, I in my head she took it off when he rejected her eventually.
I
Or
thought
eventually she took it
I
off, but
thought
I
she
don't
was
remember.
still delusional enough to wear it.
I don't know. I feel like initially she does, but yeah, I don't remember. That's something to look into.
But yeah, just the more I think about specifically the blue bloods, the more Elaine, well, and also Blue Annis just keep popping in my head.
There's a lot of little, not Easter eggs, but just like little, almost like trigger words that you're like, huh, that sounds
I'm
similar.
very triggered, but also like obviously more too, especially with Astrid, some things we'll learn about her. There's a lot of more witch potential.
Yes. As Manon walks through the Blackbeak Coven leaders, they touch two fingers to their brow in deference to Manon.
It makes me think of Hunger Games.
Yeah, I mean, because it's honestly, it's a salute in
Mhm.
respect. Manon rules over the 20 coven leaders with her 13, and when she approaches her grandmother, she does the same gesture to her.
Beside Manon are the other two heirs, Petra, the beautiful blue blood heir, and Iskra, the thick two C's yellow legs heir. Manon would love to kill that bitch, but if the attack is unprovoked, she's going to be killed too. There are dominance battles between witches, but there's like a form and an approval process. It sounds complicated. You can't just start throwing hands.
It's like everything is very brutal, and they're trying to structure it in some manner.
It
And
makes me think of like the Spartans or something. Like it's
yeah,
very military.
yeah, yeah. The witches cross the black bridge, the stones seeming to throb under Manon's feet. So she's looking around like, do y'all not smell or feel that?
So Elle, before she starts a book, will search spicy words. I just imagine you having if you had never read Throne of Glass and you're searching your words and you see throb and you're like,
Nice.
nice.
It's on.
The witches can't see shit because there's a mist that hasn't let up. And Manon wonders if it's a trick of the kings, and if you know, you know for Crescent City readers.
On the other side of the Black Bridge are 5 men who take them further into the mountain, where they breed and train the wyvern until they make the crossing to the Omega.
The hatcheries are a level above the armories to keep the eggs warm. Dens are a level above, but they're separated by gender and type. Bulls are kept in their pens unless they're breeding, because we should just do that with all men. Because they learn the hard way that they kill anyone in their cages.
The bulls are the best, according to the man, but females can be just as fierce and twice as smart. Smaller wyverns are good for stealth and have been bred as black against the night sky or pale blue to blend into daylight patrols.
The king is the literal worst, but this operation is very impressive. Like everything that they've thought of and planned for.
Well, and also, were there wyverns in the world before he started? I just have so many
I
questions about
guess
how
there
he was
were
able to create them.
dragons, and then is that where he got but there were because it was his sigil, like, their
I know,
wyverns.
but like 10 years ago, were there dragons or this like were there ancient dragons? Because
I
it's
actually don't know. I mean, I
yeah,
don't
I don't think there
Crescent
were.
City has
I
dragons.
think the dragons have been gone for a while. So I'm just making the point that it's very impressive he created these creatures.
Well, now I'm thinking, were dragons did they get rid of them? Did the Vow get rid of them? Because, like, we know that a dragon's fire can hurt a prince of hell.
Sounds likely.
Yeah.
Sounds very
I don't
likely.
have a lot of evidence for that, but it is now headcanon.
Keep that in the back of your mind.
They walk downstairs carved into the stone to a viewing platform where 40 feet below is the training pit. One end is open to a cliff face and the other sealed with an iron gate. When Mother Blackbeak, I hate that. When Ms. Blackbeak asks when they're going to be able to select their mounts, this rando man answers they've trained the gentler ones to teach the witches the basic wrong thing to say.
Oh, you need to step back because the witches all, of course, take offense to that.
Except the blue blood matron, who's like, yeah, that makes sense. And it leads the man to keeping his focus on Cressida, thinking, okay, like, you're the safest. But Manon actually thinks the blue bloods might be the deadliest of them all.
Fanatics are always scary.
Yes.
The iron gate opens and a bull, Titus, walks out with a chain
I
around his.
just picture him strutting out.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. He's
Have you
like,
been
y'all ready for
waiting?
this? Titus walks out with a chain around his back leg and a tail with a venomous barb.
He really impresses the ladies when he immediately kills one of his handlers. They're like, spectacular. Give me 14 of them right now.
Back in Mistward, breakfast is over, which means it's time for Selena to start training with Rowan.
And he seems almost annoyed that she's not complaining about having to work. It's very, if you've read Crescent City, Hunt and his first impressions of Bryce.
Oh my God,
when they don't match up.
it's all very parallel. Like Hunt makes no
Yeah.
further assumptions than what like Bryce shows him on a surface level,
Mhm.
and Rowan's the same, like not looking any deeper, doesn't even care.
And they're both sexy.
Love that. Rowan leads her past the wards and through the forest to the ruins of a temple. She tries that bravado she's always used as a mask, but Rowan literally says, cut the horse shit.
I love that though, that he's really the first one that sees through it immediately. Cut it. It's not going to work on me.
Well, he just won't let her, like, she's lying to him, but she's lying to herself, and he just won't let her. He's like,
He
I don't
doesn't
care.
care enough right now.
Exactly. I don't care.
And if you're thinking that we're about to start a Valkyrie training session, you're wrong. The whole plan, Rowan's whole plan is basically just yelling shift, which, as we know, isn't just physically difficult for Selena. She was never taught or trained. But it's harder, even harder than that, it's emotionally. She has suppressed that part of herself for so long so that she could, survive. And the Fae part of herself is tied to all of that trauma.
Yeah, I mean, exactly all of those things. She's got a mental block, but also she still associates shifting with being not in control of her power,
Well,
which
and
terrifies
she
her.
associates it with pain, not just physical pain, but emotional pain.
Yeah, I mean, she can handle pain, unfortunately, with Endovier and the training she's been to, but the emotional pain, she is just wrung out.
Yeah.
She doesn't need Rowan yelling at her to shift. She needs a therapist.
They both do. Her and Rowan both do.
Yes.
When simply saying shift at various volumes doesn't work, Rowan attacks and she dodges the first blow, but he's too fast She's not used to fighting a mortal fae, so she ends up on her back.
On her back with Rowan's powerful thighs straddling
I'd be
her.
like, "What are we?"
What is happening? Selena isn't exactly helping when she sasses back and offers him money in exchange for him pretending that they trained.
Rowan is throwing insults at her, but no one hates Helena more than she hates herself. So she's like, whatever. She's pretty apathetic until he calls her a coward. Speaking of trigger words,
Yeah, just like Nehemia.
seeing how much that word affects her, instead of being like, oh, I won't say that again, Rowan leans in, calling her a coward who has run for 10 years while innocent people were killed. God, this pisses me off. You think I don't know innocent people were? I was there. Where were you?
But there's several times this comes up later, and we can go on about this, but they'll be like, "She hasn't done anything. She was literally a
What'd you
child."
want her to do at 8 years old?
And even now, I think she's like, what, 18, maybe
Mhm.
19? Like, she's barely not a child, and people are like, "What have you been doing?" She's barely not a child.
God, it makes me so
It's
mad.
a lot.
And after seeing her pretty much disassociate, that's what happens when she gets called a coward, Rowan tells Selena to get up.
Just like Kale at the end of the duel with Kane.
More trigger words. Two people that she loved, two people who helped shove her over this cliff that she is still falling from.
Rowan then drags her to the edge of a grassy plateau with barrows, ancient tombs of lords and princes with iron doors to keep the whites inside with the treasure they've stolen.
And we talked about the whites in our Crescent City deep dive, talking about how a certain underking could potentially be a white. We don't actually meet a white yet, though. Whites live among the barrows because important people have pretty tings, and barrow whites love pretty tings, which, again, when we talked about the underking, also possibly the Suriel who loved a good cloak.
Yep.
And just visually, I picture the Shire, like the doors are covered by the
Well,
earth.
that's kind of how they describe the barrows because they're like little mounds,
Yeah,
little hills.
that's how I'm picturing it, but then when I Googled it, it is like the doors are in the earth.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're real things.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to look into that more. Rowan tells Aelin that if she can face the whites and make it to the other side of the field, she can go to Doranel. A trap, especially without weapons, but she's desperate and all out of fucks to give.
First red flag is the barrow with dead grass around it and the missing iron door.
Second is looking back and seeing Rowan isn't walking with her anymore.
She keeps walking even when she sees a white inside of one of the mounds. She's close enough that it could reach out and drag her in, but it seems to be hesitating. And when she's passing, she feels like a pulsing in her ears that becomes a high pitched ringing in her head.
It's getting worse with every step. She then notices the white cringing away too. It's not hesitating because of her or Rowan, but because there's another predator, a man.
The worst kind of predator, a man.
Or something that looks like a gorgeous man with pale skin, night dark hair, and an onyx torque around his neck.
And torques are like a necklace. It's usually made from metal and it's open at the front. The Celts and the Vikings wore them a lot, but also me in college. But I put the open part in the back like an idiot because I just thought it was like a necklace without a clasp.
In your defense, when we were in college, having a choker was like the thing.
The
So
thing.
it made more sense to be at the back. All of a sudden, a wave of darkness is thrown over
Does
Selena.
that sound like any High Lords? Speaking of,
Interesting. She can feel the grass, she thinks, but she can't see anything, only swirling black.
the pounding in her ears gets worse and her nose begins to bleed. And okay, like we're running now. Even though she's running to the edge of the field, there is nothing, only blackness and a smell that she recognizes from the night that her parents were murdered.
There's a flash of light, but it's not clouds or grass or Rowan she sees. It's her parents' room. That night, Selena crawled into her parents' bed because she felt like something was wrong. Something was standing in the corner of her room. That's so terrifying.
Mhm.
When she woke, she thought the bed was wet because of the rain coming through the open window. But just as she did that night, she sees her parents laying there with their throats slit.
I mean, I've never woken up to that, but I do have sleep paralysis a lot. And I, a lot of times, feel like there's something in the corner of my room and it's fucking terrifying.
Everything about that would be terrifying. And then to wake up to find that the horror is even worse than she
Yeah, at
thought.
least I don't wake up to
Yeah.
that.
Fortunately, it's just you.
It's just usually like my chair with laundry on it, and I'm like a demon. But she falls to the ground and vomits and pisses herself because Sarah loves to make a woman piss herself in front of a man.
I mean, I guess it's just falling apart. Then she's in Nehemia's room and the thing thing that happens to be near her, like, slides a hand over her waist and pulls her back against his chest. Like, when did you get
Again,
close to me?
what are we? I fear this would work on me. I would immediately be like, "Whatever.
It's not fair that it
Okay."
sounds sexy the way he's slipping a hand around her
I
waist.
know.
She slams her elbow back and it releases her, giving her time to run through the illusion of Nehemia's blood and toward Rowan.
She is hysterical, and Rowan's like, "What the fuck?" In her panic, she starts shifting back and forth, fade to human and back, and then she blows a magical load and passes out. Rowan's like, "What's happening?"
I can imagine. I mean, like, I guess if he just, but he had to have seen the cloud of darkness over her, right? So, like, are you not
Why
curious
didn't
about
he
what that
go
is?
in?
I mean, if you're not familiar with what this is, yeah, why is he not asking more questions, like more concern? She wakes in the forest where Rowan dragged her. Instead of asking what happened or if she's okay, Rowan has his thesaurus out for his insults. No discipline, no control, no
Like,
courage.
excuse me, courage? You don't even know what that thing was. You don't even know what I just saw.
You didn't
That's
even see what happened.
horrible.
I was in a like ball of glass black. You don't even see what happened. Ball of darkness. He's like, I had to drag you away, and now I'll never know what it was. Like it's her fault
He's
somehow.
blaming her. She's there. She's
Also,
in her pee pants.
he's like, I had to drag you away. You didn't come in and get me. I got myself
I
out.
got
Excuse
myself
me.
out. And he does say that they've had some skinwalkers, which, what? Let's hear more about that. But they've had some skinwalkers in the area searching for human pelts. Skinwalkers is not something I expect to see.
Just walking around.
Well, in a fantasy book, like that's
Yeah.
very to me like Native American
Yeah, I don't think of it as
folklore.
something supernatural, I
Yeah,
guess. Put a pin in that, though.
put a pin in that. But Rowan does know whatever that was. He doesn't know what it was, but it was not a skinwalker.
That does not make me feel any better.
No.
He takes her to the baths, tells her to be in the kitchen tomorrow at dawn, and leaves.
And that was our first day of training. You're probably thinking, okay, Rowan will take everything that happened into account and he will rework his strategy and curriculum.
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 Speaking of memories, Kale is meeting with his father in his office.
Sitting at the desk where he and Selena role played President Clinton and Monica Lewinsky.
Ooh. His dad calls Kale out on being no closer to moving home to Anielle. He
His
isn't.
father actually, like, he's terrible, but he does make me laugh
His
sometimes.
father just throws out truths.
When he's the only one that calls Kale on his shit, even if he's doing so for like the wrong reasons.
His father, and we see it in later books, his father pulls no punches.
No.
Kale isn't looking for his replacement, and he still hasn't told the king he's leaving.
And just a quick refresh, Kale made a deal with his father for support in sending Selena to Windland. In exchange, Kale has to leave his butt buddy and his job that he takes seriously and not seriously enough somehow at the same time. And he has to return to Anielle as heir. And his job is most of his personality, so it's a very big deal.
One of the reasons Kale has been busy is he's been going to Adian's parties every night, but still hasn't actually seen the general at any of them.
Sus.
So what started as simple blackmail has evolved into Kale low-key being obsessed with figuring out what is going on.
He's also still trying to find a way to help baby girl Dorian and Selena by freeing magic, which I am so confused by Kale's character. He's still loyal to the king and he's trying to find a way to free magic.
For now.
What's happening?
For now, he's like, it'll just make it easier for them not to be targets if everybody has magic. You're like, okay.
No, it'll just mean that he starts slaughtering people again. Let them hide.
Yeah.
After finding nothing in the books that Selena found on magic, Kale remembered that the rebel group that Archer and Nehemia were part of claimed that they knew where Aelin Galanthinius was and that they were close to finding a way to break the king's mysterious power over the continent.
The first one is obviously a lie, but the rebel group is the only lead on magic that he has. So on top of trailing Adian, he's going to find the rebels.
His father wants Kale to move back to Anielle immediately, but they settle on 2 months and Kale owing him a favor.
Okay, father. Yes, I'll owe you a favor.
Whatever.
Elsewhere in the glass castle, Sorsha has been called up to Dorian's messy ass room to tend his split lip in his hand. Dorian asks where she's from. Finharrow, the place your father destroyed, and if she's always wanted to be a healer.
Dorian is just trying to get to know her. We know because he is baby girl, but she's in her head like, I've been watching you since we were teenagers. You smiled at me one time. I'm laughing. This character, if I were a character in this series, it's probably this one, just like watching from afar, a beautiful guy, but It is kind of funny.
I mean, that would be me too, though. I blush at everything and also would not expect to get noticed, especially by Dorian.
I just
So
have eczema. I'd be like, "Are you blushing?"
I'm also so anxious that like he'd probably like just be sitting, but I'd be like, oh my God, are we almost touching? Do I need to
Oh
move?
my
I should
god,
step
what
back. I'm
are
too
we?
close. Dorian asks why she didn't tell anyone about him, Kale, and Selena's injuries, and she tells him he was never cruel to healers or to anyone, and the world needs better. And he finishes her sentences saying, "People, the world needs better people."
Oh my god, are we finishing each other's sentences now?
Like, but really, what
What
are
are
we?
we?
It's a sweet moment. Anyways, let's talk about your dead parents in Burn Village.
God, Dorian.
When Dorian asks why she'd come to the castle of the man who did that, she says she had nowhere else to go.
And that is kind of he's not being cruel here. He can't really fathom people don't have options in this world that your father's created.
Yeah.
And even though it was his father, Dorian apologizes, and the next day he asks for the name of her village via a messenger so he can have it added to his personal map of the continent, which is such a rich boy activity. I'm making my own
I
map
know
of the
I'm
continent.
I know he means well, and to be fair, his father has destroyed so much that there's probably a lot of places that you may never know once existed if Dorian doesn't make an effort to find out what they are.
Yeah.
It's just such
It
a
just
small
sounds
thing.
like anything like a guy in the dorm rooms at Princeton would be doing, like, "I'm
Yeah.
making my own map."
Well, it's not like he's doing anything to help,
Not yet.
but it is sentimental and matters to her. Inside the Omega, the three Iron Teeth clans have been divided into rotating shifts of training with wyverns, the weapons room, and mortal warfare to keep them separated.
Which is why the mess hall where everyone eats two daily meals, is that all we're eating?
I don't
Are
have
there
time
snacks in between?
to.
What about lunch? But that's why the mess hall is the most dangerous place. Manon is standing in line for her slop. These are witches that everyone is supposed to be afraid of. I'm okay. I get so upset about like all Rowan brought for that whole trip was cheese. They're getting slop. I'm concerned about the food.
I don't know how anybody's
Where are
surviving.
they going to the bathroom?
I don't
The
know.
witches.
Chamber pots? I don't know how this works.
I don't Anyway, Manon is standing in line for her slot behind the Blue Bloods, who always seem to be first in line for food or the rooms and for everything, and to ride wyverns. Almost like not terrifying the humans is working out for them. Like maybe you guys should try just being nice.
No, too far. This is that line you were talking about earlier. Witches don't need blood to survive, but they do enjoy it. The blue bloods enjoy the blood of virgins the most.
Just like Blue Annis. And Black Annis is a boogeyman figure in English folklore. She is imagined as a blue faced hag or witch with iron claws and a taste for human flesh.
Real casual. Two Blackbeak covens, including the 13, gather on an open cliff face with 26 tethered wyverns. They're wearing new riding gear that's heavy and awkward.
So it's probably designed for a woman by a man. Probably doesn't even have pockets. But at least they have no dorky goggles like Fourth Wing. The witches have a clear film that covers their eyes from the wind, which is, I guess, like an evolution thing.
There's so many like small cool things about the genetics of the witches. I mean, like, because the iron teeth, what's so different about the Krakens that they don't have any iron? I'm just
hmm
curious. Do the Krakens also have the film over their eyes? I just want to ask more questions about
It
the
makes me
witches.
think of sometimes on TikTok, it'll be like things from my house that was built in the 1940s that just make sense.
Yeah.
But like when you look at a witch and it's like things that just make sense. Clear film over the eyes.
They're expected to be flying. Love that. Manon climbs onto the saddle of her wyvern for the day, a small female, and the overseers tell the witches that the wyverns know what to do to make the crossing.
I need a little more information
Yeah, personally, I'm not
before we
ready to
go out
trust
there.
this beast, but okay.
The crossing is the sheer plunge between the two mountain peaks, the final test for rider and mount. If the wyvern can't make it, they literally just splatter.
Yeah.
There's no other option. And with the Yellowlegs heirs, Coven, and the three high witches on the viewing platform watching, Manon says, "We are the 13 from now until the darkness claims us. Let's remind them why," which is a badass line.
Oh, so they're I love the 13. They are very badass. The three gallops and Manon and the wyvern are going straight down until the wings spread and the world tilts.
And just like that, they're flying for the first time in a decade. The wind caresses and sings to Manon, telling her of its currents, more an instinct than natural gift. So that's not a regular witch thing. That instinct made her the best flyer in all 3 clans.
Which is why Iskra and everybody is there watching to see how they
They
do.
want her to
Like, they're
fail.
all taunting, like, "Y'all won't be that great," but Manon is a natural flyer.
Mhm.
Like, she can basically read the winds. Later, Manon's grandmother tells her that she wants Manon and the 13 to be wing leader, to lead all of the clans. There will be war games in a few months to determine rankings, and the high bitch doesn't care how Manon does it, but she better come out on top.
Speaking of the wing leader, the witches, especially the 13, would destroy the dorks in 4th wing. I'm sorry.
Dorks.
They're wearing their goggles. Okay. The witches may be on the same side for now, the 3 Iron Teeth clans, but once they're done with whatever the king has planned, they're going to go right back to fighting over the Iron Teeth throne. So she advises Manon to keep Astrid close, and when Manon says, "I'm good," like I'm Manon, she's reminded that someone managed to kill Baba Yellowlegs, a 700-year-old witch. So yeah, you need to watch your back.
Yeah, managed to kill her without magic. That's interesting. And that's where we're going to pick up next week with Selena working in the kitchens and training with Rowan, Dorian finding excuses to visit Sorsha, and Kaol trailing Adian in Heir of Fire chapters 17 through 24.
And as always, we really appreciate all of the ratings and reviews. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, y'all.